Hello there, kia ora. Monday was a fascinating day for watching politics. The Treaty Principal Bill's Select Committee public speaker submission process happened, and like how both Aldous Huxley and C.S. Lewis died the day that JFK was assassinated, overshadowing their deaths forever, well, the submission hearings pretty much overshadowed everything else that happened this day. The government, for example, actually made a fairly common sense announcement about a new digital nomad visa currently found in other parts of the world, which won't fix tourism or supercharge growth like they want the public to believe, but it's not a bad addition. It's not going to hurt things or make things worse. Or a report from four economists from across the political spectrum who had criticised the Prime Minister's State of the Nation speech plan for fixing the economy that he tanked. But these were overshadowed by the Select Committee submissions. Now, it is impossible to get a fair idea of the views of the public based on the oral submitters, since the Justice Select Committee felt that they wouldn't be able to hear them all, leading to a hand-picked selection from across the political spectrum. And then, for most people, these submissions are then going to be summarised and compressed even further as mainstream media tries to cover them in a simple and succinct way, which loses a lot of the nuance beyond or behind those submissions. But there was some beautiful kōrero and eloquent opposition to the bill from a range of groups like the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Christchurch Methodist Mission, Hauora Tai Whenua Rural Health Network, Asians Supporting Tino Rangatiratanga, Ngāti Manuhiri Settlement Trust, university professors in politics and political sciences, former Attorney General and Treaty Negotiations Minister Chris Finlayson representing the Bar Association, youth organisations, doctors, former MPs from across the political spectrum, including two treaty negotiations ministers, and from the absolute legend that is Dame Marilyn Waring, the woman who rattled Muldoon so much he called his schnapps election, and more. They pointed out every argument against the bill that you've heard a million times before, and a heap you may not have. And each of those arguments are incredibly valid today, as they have been throughout the entire stupid mess of a situation. And there were some people who supported this damn thing, like the dude who runs Curia, who set up the Taxpayers Union, that organisation that had spent years undermining the legitimate work done by governments, that it was the only way to achieve public legitimate interpretations on the treaty is to have them set by Parliament, after people apparently have spent the last 5 to 10 years getting anxious for some reason about the principles of the treaty and what government does. I can't work out what happened in that time frame for these changes to occur. There was a business lecturer who would only say that she was a lecturer at a university, but she happened to agree with two parts of the bill that would breach the contract, that is, te tiriti. Someone who said it was wrong of the left to assume all those who support the bill are racist, but was unable to understand the role of systemic racism in our governmental infrastructure and undertakings. And of course, Hobson's pledge was there, sending their token person of colour, Elliot Ekele, pointing out that they are based on a rumoured expression from William Hobson and not something actually written down in the documents themselves, and the fact that they felt that they were entitled to speak and weren't given a spot was an absolute outrage, despite the fact that they were emailed and asked to submit and didn't respond on time, falling into the trap that they themselves were warning against. And exactly as you expect, they argued that the bill didn't go far enough, that equity might be an accidental, unintended outcome of the bill as it currently is written, and that would be bad, and fell then into the oversimplified messaging that appeals to those who wish to stay uninformed. And they use the opportunity to advertise the platform. The woman tasked with remaking our education system, who wants to bring back cursive and ancient European poetry like Beowulf to our school system, well, she claimed that we needed this bill to stop being a third world tribal village that can't even make things like art and music properly, which are all part of a liberal democracy, and that Māori should be happy that colonisation happened. In fact, there was a lot of, why aren't Māori more grateful? They're turning the country woke by not accepting that we saved them. Generally speaking, these comments and those who supported the bill fell into a very specific demographic. They were generally older and more Pākehā than the average demographic breakdown of the country from the last census results. And the big issue here is that the way this all is presented is really problematic. The whole day was framed around David Seymour and his claims after he opened the process as the MP who submitted the bill. The Herald ran this headline using a direct quote from Seymour that reaffirms a belief by Seymour and his supporters that they're missing out on something by understanding and honouring Te Tiriti, understanding the reasoning why the judiciary has evolved, current principles, by understanding the fundamental nature the living document has and the 185 years of lived experiences. It is a disservice to the public to frame this day of submissions as purely being around Seymour's perspective, since this is a democratic process. This is the democratic process for allowing people to have their say and be heard, which has been so driven and fractious that it resulted in a systemic breakdown in those democratic systems that we're all meant to have our voices heard. That just wasn't possible here, which means that Seymour has already broken democracy with this process. And maybe we should also be asking how robust our democratic systems are if they can be broken down like this, a real-world DDoS attack. And like all of ACT's policies and its government actions against Māori in the name of equality, the problem can actually be summed up by the professor of public policy at the Institute of Public Policy from AUT, the woman whose threat to cross the parliament floor to ensure we became nuclear free led to the downfall of Robert Muldoon, Dame Marilyn Waring, where a person or peoples have been subject to socially constructed, historic, systemic, and systematic accumulative disadvantage, equality cannot be achieved through equal treatment, which is what this whole thing really boils down to. Hey, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe so you get more updates as we go along. We deal with these guys for the rest of the year.